Welcome to the new episode of the Wellness Podcast. Today, our guest is Muskan Sharma, who is the founder of Unrevealing Minds, who taught over 500 plus students for art therapy and counseling. She's a counseling psychologist, family and art therapist, and a special educator. In this episode, we talk a lot about supervision, mentorship, and if you are an early career therapist, what exactly a roadmap you can follow? What exactly a step ahead when you qualify your any exam, or for example if you qualified masters, if you are landing yourself out there into the market, what exactly prerequisites are, what exactly you can do to launch your private practice, what exactly business plans are, what exactly systems are. So if you are looking for a supervision driven podcast or a mentorship driven podcast, this episode is for you. Hey Muskan, how are you?
Hi, Shank. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good. So, today we are going to discuss majorly about supervision and how psychologists are taking this and why it's important for early career therapists. So, can you just give us a very shortest gist on how supervision works, what supervision is actually? So, yeah.
Okay, so supervision is nothing. It's just a structured relationship between, supervisor who is usually either a senior of yours or maybe peer as well, and with a therapist where you come together, where you discuss the case, where you get a second mind of whatever case is going on, getting different perspectives out of it, and then discussing what all possible therapies are there to apply. It basically gives you a better structure and how to actually take a case forward. So it helps you in case discussion, it helps you in case formulation, to pick up various therapies, to actually understand how different therapies can be used in an eclectic approach, and then how to take a case forward in a competent manner. So it's a very simple thing. That is how supervision works.
Cool. So, what's the difference between mentorship and supervision? Because many psychologists who are early career therapists used to go for mentorship but
Hmm.
not supervision. Some goes to supervision but not mentorship. So, how these are correlated, or what's the difference between these two?
Okay, so right now, if we talk about supervision and mentorship in mental health field, so these two things are going parallelly. So, first of all, if we go for the therapeutic outfront, for example, all the early career therapists who are actually struggling or, who are actually exploring the therapies, how to apply therapies, they're starting off with their careers, they're taking cases, clients, or patients, and, how to make therapies, how to understand what sort of approach to be used, how to make short term and long term goals. At that time we go for supervision, so that is like a supervision is more therapy oriented. And when we talk about mentorship right now in mental health field, we talk about mentorship, it is more career oriented. For example, if you're starting off with your private practice, right, how to actually go about it, how to establish your private practice, should you even go for private practice right now or not. This is another thing that a number of people come to me saying that, okay, I have, like, let's say 6 months of experience. Should I go with it? And I also get people saying that we have 5 years of experience. Should I go for private practice? Do understand what your competencies are, what your skills are, and how to actually have a business plan? A number of psychologists out there I have seen, they don't understand that, to start your private practice, you need a proper business plan. You need to understand marketing, you need to understand sales, how to get clients. I guess that is one of the main things, right? Because we just think that, okay, we'll just open up a clinic, we'll just, have a clinical setup, we'll sit there and the clients will come on their own. So this is where we actually need mentorship. So that is a mentorship, to understand what is your brand, what is your brand identity, what is your face identity, and how to market yourself out there, and how to actually portray yourself that, okay, you're a counseling psychologist or a clinical psychologist, and now you can start getting your clients. So that is the area where mentorship comes in play. So these are the two different things, supervision and mentorship. Yeah.
Right, you rightly said that many psychologists aspire to launch their own clinic or private practice, but don't have a really good business plan because
Exactly.
they don't know business plus tech. So that's the major concern.
Hmm.
Uh, in today's world, everything is tech enabled. For example, physics wala is ed tech company, ed tech, education plus tech,
Hmm.
right? Many companies are ad tech, ad plus tech, advertisement plus tech.
Advertisement.
Many companies are, you can say, production plus tech. For example, Red Chillies Entertainment of Shah Rukh Khan. It's a production company, but it is tech enabled because they have VFX artists, they have their technical capabilities. Nearly everything is now tech enabled. Your private practice should be tech enabled as well. So it must be Psy tech, you can say, PSY plus tech, psychologist plus tech. And you have to build systems around it. Business systems, sales systems, funnel system. You rightly said about the fees, identity, about the sales structure and the brand identity as well. So you have to graphically present it. For example, yellow color suits you. So your brand identity should have a logo plus
Hmm.
color palettes plus fee structure, sliding scale if you have. A lot of things are there. So
Hmm.
that's one thing. So yeah, what are the major challenges that early career therapists face in terms of launching their prior practice? And then we will jump towards supervision while they are just taking clients at very early stage.
Okay. So first of all, one thing that I've seen people are struggling out there when to start with their private practice. Some people come with overconfidence. To be honest, that I have 3 months or 6 months of
Mhm.
experience, and I really think that I've taken so many, workshops or training sessions or certifications on various therapies, and I think I can apply it. So that is when they think that I can start with my private practice. And some people out there, even after spending 3 to 5 years or 7 years of their career in therapy or in counseling, they think that they cannot start. So I guess one thing is that overconfidence and underconfidence, to actually understand whether your skills are there, the skills, the competency, the imposter syndrome, right? How you're actually dealing with all of these. This is the first thing that you start with your private practice. Then after that, even if you're up for it, let's start with private practice. The second thing comes that they don't understand that you need to have a business plan to it. How much you're going to invest, how much you already have to invest, what is your ROI, right? Return of investment, how you're planning to get that thing, how are you planning to get your clients? Because a number of times, even when I started with my private practice, I also used to have this thing in my mind that I'll just sit somewhere, I'll put my board out, and the clients will start to come on my own. So that is another thing, that how to actually have a business plan, how people are going to come, how you have to network yourself, how you have to portray yourself out there that, okay, I'm a competent counseling psychologist or a clinical psychologist, and people can trust me and come to me now. Right. So this is another thing that early career therapists are actually going through. Apart from that, like how to actually go about it, how to manage your finances. This is another thing that usually people don't understand. How to actually, how to, like, what fees should I keep for myself? A number of psychologists are actually dealing with this thing. So these are a few things that I usually see in my mentorship sessions. And apart from that, what all registrations do I need? Right? Because RCI is there, UGC is there. But apart from that, we need legal terms as well. For example, having a trademark. Right. We are, as psychologists, we are just, oscillating between what RCA is telling and what UGC net is, sorry, UGC is telling, but we don't understand there are other things as well. For example, getting a trademark done, whether you want to go for private limited or LLP. I have seen people go directly for private limited without actually realizing that you have to go for the taxation part as well. Right. So I always say that understand what is actually required for your private practice, whether you're, competent enough or whether you're confident enough, let's say confident enough to actually go into these things. So explore your options, get the knowledge, and then go about it. Don't directly jump for a private limited thinking that this is the highest level of, practice. So that's not how it works. First of all, understand. A number of times it also happens that, you get a lot of, you get fatigued when the clients are not coming. It's been 1 year, you lose
Hmm.
your hope, you feel a little helpless and hopeless. So at that time, if you have to, switch from again from your private practice to a job, then it becomes very difficult. So you need to have resources, be it psychological, be it emotional, be it finances. You need to have your resources, right? Then only go for it. So I guess these are a few things that I've seen in mentorship, especially when people are, planning to have a private practice.
Right. So, you rightly said about this. Many people used to struggle within 1 year, and then going to a job feels tough.
Mm.
So, I want to share a story here. I personally realized this. Many psychologists used to launch their private practice within 7 to 8 months. They will be shutting it down and jumping back to the job because in that 7 to 8 months, they realize that it's not an easy journey. It's not, you can say, a straight line. You have to analyze CAC as well, cost of acquisition of a customer. Then you have to also learn about ROAS, return on ad spend if you are running ads. If you are, for example, if you are launching a website and launching ads on Google Ads, then you have to also
Mm.
realize CPC, cost per click. So this is
Mm.
very important. You have to have a roadmap and a business plan, rightly said. So within 6, 7 months, it's a learning phase and then getting back to a job. So, but you have spent nearly 15, 20 days just to analyze each and everything and planning out everything, and then you launch it. It will last much more longer. It's much more stable. You will not feel that much challenging while being into this journey. So this can be one thing. Second, if we jump towards supervision side, what are the major challenges that early career therapists used to feel while getting supervised in very early stage?
Okay. So, if you talk about the early stage, I just remember my first day. Like, I started my journey with AIMS. So, I was there in the addiction center, and my doctor, when under whom I was working, he said, okay, this is the patient, Muskan, talk to him and take the case history. Right. So, when I sat in front of him, I thought I've observed this a number of times, right? In our internship, we take, we observe case history taking, and this is so easy. I already have a intake performer right in front of me. I just have to ask the questions. But when I sat there and when I talked to the patient, I was I was talking in a robotic voice. It was more like an interrogation rather than taking a case history. And I just remember my patient looking at me and saying, "Ma'am, aap kaun ho? Who are you?" And like, are you supposed to take all of these information? Because I was in the addiction, right? So there were a number of questions to it. So that is the time when I realized that, whatever theories that we're studying in colleges, and when we are sitting in the therapist chair, it is a different thing. It's a practical thing. You need to have soft skills. So the first challenge is soft skills. Because people actually, it's not, I guess almost everyone goes through the same thing. We are taught how to take mental status examination. We are taught case history. We think that case history is the easiest part. But when I see when early career therapists are coming to me for supervision, they have actually not taken proper case histories till now. They are missing a number of things. They get lost in that huge pro forma, the format that we have. Ma'am, we don't know how to ask so many questions. It sounds like interrogation. So that is when I say that, in supervision, first of all, work on your soft skills. When you're talking, when you are taking a therapy or a counseling session, you're talking to a human being. So it should go in a flow. It should sound like a conversation rather than an interrogation. So I guess one thing is that. Secondly, of course, deciding how to, understand what approach is to be applied on the client, whether it's a humanistic approach or a psychodynamic, existentialism, and then how to, pick up different therapies. This is one thing that in India, psychologists are majorly struggling with because in our curriculum, we are studying everything all together. Right. So this is a big thing that I've seen. So even I used to struggle with it, and a number of early career therapists are struggling with it. How to actually use CBT, DBT, REBT. There are so many, therapies out there. So how to actually understand that what approach is to be used, what therapy to be used, and how to use the techniques. Apart from that, we know the like the theoretical part. Let's say if we take up CBT, we know the theoretical part, that is we have to do cognitive restructuring. But how to actually do it in a session, we don't know that, right? So that is the practical aspect. So second is the practical aspect that people actually lack. They don't know how to actually do it. So this is another thing. Then goes with case formulation. For example, right now we are having a conversation, in 1 hour conversation with a client, there are so many things that you have to note down. So many information that you get, ma'am, how much to actually write down? Right, I'm writing 10 and 10 pages. I don't know how to write. And then in the next session, I have to write another 5 to 10 pages. So I don't exactly understand that how to write down. So that is where I help, that you have to identify the keywords. You have to focus on the verbatim. You have to focus on the repetitive words or repetitive statements or the problems that they're presenting with. That is how you actually document the case, right? So going in a proper structure, that is not something we're usually taught, because this is not the theoretical part, this is the practical part when you're sitting at the chair of a therapist, right? Apart from that, of course, how to pick up various therapies, as I already said, there is a lot of imposter syndrome, because when we go through the social media, when we see Instagram or LinkedIn, we see so many people are doing so great. And when we look at ourselves and thinking like, am I doing it right? Am I lagging in my career? Am I good enough? So you create a little imposter syndrome there. So after taking a session, a number of times we do have that thing in our mind, that whether I said something incorrect in the session, whether I did it correctly or not. So these are a few things that early career therapists struggle with a lot. And that is why in supervision, it's not just the structural part, it's not just the practical part, but a supervision will also hold an emotional part for you, removing that imposter syndrome, helping you over your confidence, strengthening your competence, strengthening your soft skills, your theoretical aspect, of course, but like along with it, how to gap that theoretical and the practical gap. So that is how supervision works, and we how this is how we actually like help in these challenges.
Right. So, for example, if a psychologist cleared their masters, right, and now they are um, looking for a supervisor for supervision, should they go towards RCA license psychologist as a supervisor, or should they go towards counseling psychologist having more than 10 years? Should they go towards a sports psychologist as a supervisor? So, what kind of psychologist, or what are the criteria for a supervisor to look towards it?
Okay, so the question is like how to select your supervisor, right? So that is like a major thing that we, usually struggle with, how to actually identify what sort of supervisor you need. First of all, what areas you're working in. If you're a counseling psychologist, then of course going to a counseling psychologist would be a better option. If you're looking for clinical cases, right? If you're a clinical psychologist, or if you have interest towards clinical as well, then of course you should go for an RCA licensed clinical psychologist. Accordingly, if you are, indulging yourself in neurodevelopmental cases, you can go to rehabilitation psychologist or someone who's dealing in special education. So it absolutely depends what sort of cases you're taking. Right, that is how you decide. Apart from that, certain therapists are having different approaches they are working in. For example, if you're getting a lot of trauma cases, then go for a therapist, go for a supervisor who are dealing in trauma. Right, if you're having grief cases, then go for a psychologist who is actually dealing with grief cases. So that is how we specifically select our supervisor according to their work area. That is one thing. Secondly, whether the approaches are aligning with your personal approaches or not. For example, if I personally talk, I take a lot of trauma cases, right? So that is how you actually decide that whether I'm getting trauma cases or not, whether my way of dealing with trauma is similar to yours or not, right? Whether my therapeutic approach is actually aligning with yours or not. This is the second thing. Thirdly, I would say the way the supervisor supervises you. A number of times, the supervisor is actually giving you theoretical aspect. Sometimes it is going to give you therapeutic aspect. Sometimes it's going to give you again practical outlook to the case. So whether whatever the supervisor is teaching you, right, that is also aligning with your interest or not. Then, lastly, I would say whether the supervisor is actually able to help you, support you, or not, or you're going to a supervisor just to get
Mhm.
criticized. Because a number of times I do get counseling psychologists back to me. They're coming back to me. They are telling that, the earlier, like the previous supervisor, they used to just criticize us. Whatever we were doing, they were just saying, no, this is wrong, this is right, you should do this, you should not do that. So they don't get the space to actually discuss what they're going through. Right. So whether the supervisor is actually giving you that space to discuss whatever you have in your mind or not, to actually, it's a place to actually rectify your mistakes rather than getting pointed or get criticism. Right. So it should be a supportive outlook. So I guess these are a few things that are coming to my mind right now.
Sure thing. So many psychologists who are into their early phase go for supervisor or for supervision. And when they are doing that, there is a fear of judgment.
Hmm.
Plus, you can say performance anxiety, and they are afraid to communicate certain things that, hey, this I did not as expectations of my supervisor. Should I communicate this or not? So, what do you want to say about it?
Yeah, like a number of times this does happen. Like I had a client, I remember, early career therapist of, 1 year of experience. So she came to me and she said that like she had a supervisor in her organization itself, but she was seeking external supervision from me as well. Right. So she said that there was a case that the case, she called her up in the middle of the night because she was having a panic attack at that time. Right. So she of course picked the call. She had a conversation with her for around 20 to 25 minutes. She calmed her down and then she said that okay, we'll proceed it in the next session. Right. A typical thing that should be done in an emergency situation, which is absolutely fine. Now, when she told this thing to her supervisor, the supervisor absolutely scolded her that you did not maintain your boundaries. Right. Because if a person is calling you, if your client is calling you in the midnight, then and if you're picking it up, then you're not maintaining your boundaries, which is also correct. But there is an ethical dilemma here, right? Because the
Right.
client was having a panic attack at that particular moment. So at that time, she came to me and like the counselor, she was literally crying in front of me that I got scolded because of this thing. So did I do a right thing or not? So these are certain ethical dilemmas that we go through, and from here only the judgment, the fear of judgment arises, whether I did a good thing or a bad thing. Was I correct? Was I not correct? And if you're getting scolded, if you wanted to, tell her about the boundaries, then you should have sat with her. You should have told her that, see, these are the boundaries and you should maintain these. So if you're, reacting instead of responding mindfully as a supervisor, then also, the fear of judgment comes up. And of course, the early career therapist is not going to tell you about these things the next time she goes through it. Right. So providing them with a space is very much required. So I guess this is how, the fear of judgment comes up, whether I'm doing something right, whether I'm doing something wrong, whether I'm doing something dumb. That is another thing comes up, am I being dumb enough, or, am I being way too empathetic? Should I stop myself? So these are a few things that comes up. You just have to, have a supervisor who is there to actually understand you, to,
Mhm.
provide you with a space. Yeah.
So, rightly said, when you are in learning phase, be as dumb as possible.
Hmm.
Try to be try to be in spaces that you know nothing about. You just learn that. Because when you are learning from zero, you must not care about XYZ. Just jump and be like a horse that, hey, I want to crack this. That's what I personally feel when you need to achieve an X amount of, you can say, thing in a time bound. duration. So, moving towards like from doing therapy to be a therapist, what are the changes? For example, if somebody is just very early in their career, have nearly 10, 12 sessions overall, they are doing therapy of people very initially. And then being a proper therapist, having multiple modalities, having expertise, having, you can say, 4, 5 years of experience, what are the difference that comes up alongside?
Okay, one of the main differences that I've seen when you're doing a therapy and when you actually eventually become a therapist is that what I've listened in the early career therapist that I had a case. You know, you look at your client as a case, but when you become a therapist, it's not just a case. There is a number of things around it. It becomes more like a human being. I've seen early career therapists are very, they're excited to apply various therapies. They're excited to, make a particular diagnosis or jump to a particular therapy that, okay, I'm going to take CBT or DBT. They decided in in the first session in itself that this is the problem. Okay, this is the conclusion to it. Whereas when you become a therapist, like for example, for myself, I take around 2 to 3 sessions of minimum to understand the whole case, then to decide the short term and the long term goals, and then to take up what therapy should be used. And even that therapy is absolutely flexible. I can absolutely change it in the next session as well. So this is one of the things that I see when you're transitioning from, doing therapy to becoming a therapist. Early career therapists, I have seen they are too excited to use a particular therapy, and when the client is not responding much to the therapy, because apparently you haven't, listened much to the client, you haven't, dig a little deeper into the mind of the client that exactly what is going on, whether the presenting problems are related to the past or from like what is the root cause of the problems, and you just start using a different therapy every time. That becomes definitely, it becomes a little problematic, and that is how you also break down that why my therapies are not working. Right. And when you become a therapist and you realize, okay, now my therapy is not working, you know how to switch. You can just in a click, okay, this is not working. CBT right now, it's not working. I already know DBT techniques or ACT techniques. I can directly use it. So this is one thing when you are becoming a therapist and you've already become a therapist. This is the transition, and it happens slowly. It happens slowly and it happens with everyone. So it's not a thing that, okay, this is happening with me. It happens with everyone. With time, you you understand
Hmm.
human behavior, not just from the theoretical aspect, but from the practical aspect. You automatically start to apply all the theories of psychology that you've studied in your bachelor's and master's. You are actually able to witness, observe, and actually apply them. And that happens slowly with your, experience, with your knowledge, and that is how you become a therapist, to actually understand that, okay, if the client is not responding to a particular therapy, I can switch to another one. So I don't have to break down, or I don't have to, like forcibly use a particular technique again and again till the client responds to it. You can switch. You have to be flexible.
Hmm.
You look at the person from a humanistic, like from a human being perspective, not humanistic, but from a human being perspective, rather than seeing that, okay, it's a client, it's a case, these are the presenting problems. So that is how you transition, and it happens over time.
So if you look towards the supervision, can therapists be a good therapist without supervision? Or just taking supervision from one supervisor is good enough? Can a psychologist in their early career have multiple supervisors as well?
Okay, it's a very good question. In fact, a number of people ask me and they tell me whether do we need a supervision or not. So supervision is not a formality, it is not a compulsion, but it is more like a clinical support system. It provides you with a little safety, it provides you with practical aspect. So if you think that you need supervision, and majority of us do need some sort of guidance, right? Whether we are doing it right or not, because when you are taking counseling sessions, you are not just working on the theoretical or the practical aspect. You're also increasing your clinical or critical thinking as well. And that is definitely not going to happen in isolation. You think that I can just sit and I can do whatever, whatever observations I'm doing, and I can just apply whatever therapy I feel like. That is fine. But of course, you need a better, insight to the same case as well. Like when I sit in my supervision sessions, it is two ways. We discuss one particular case, and it a number of times it happens that I am looking at it, let's say, from a humanistic perspective, but the other person might say that it looks like like an existentialism, right? So a single case can have multiple, perspectives to it, and that is where supervision helps a lot. Apart from that, if you take proper supervision, it provides you with a little structure, right? How to actually go about it. An early career therapist, there are so many therapies that we usually get confused about. We don't understand how to take one particular therapy and how to switch to another one. So that is why supervision is required. But again, it's not a compulsion. But of course, it is going to, we call it scaffolding, right? It helps you to, provide you a space where you can grow. Because in isolation, we actually cannot grow, right? So it provides you with a space to grow. Coming to the second question, whether a person should have one supervisor or multiple, it absolutely depends. Having a like one supervisor is always better, because if you're taking a number of supervision sessions from different supervisors, everyone will be having a different perspective, everyone will be having different areas of work, everyone will be having different way of working with their clients. So there are high chances that you might get confused in your practice. So it's always better to have one supervisor at one time. Of course you can switch, because it might happen that I'm only working in trauma informed areas, but you right now need grief therapy, or if you want to switch towards humanism or psychodynamic approaches, so then at that time you can definitely switch to another supervisor according to the requirement. So that is absolutely fine. So you can just go with different supervisors according to the areas of work, but having one supervisor at a time is of course preferable, otherwise you're going to get confused.
Right. So now let's jump towards systematic approaches and systems. So let's talk about what happens in therapy and what is essential for psychologists to do before therapy and after therapy. For example, what I heard, what I realized is before therapy session, they used to analyze their calendar, their notes, their preferred, you can say, system that they used to keep, for example, Google Documents or Word documents or Excel sheets, whatever they are using, and reminders and everything is one part. Of course, that is a comms systems. But then post therapy, there will be note taking, making it in a document and then analyzing it, studying it again before the second session. So, what happens before therapy and after therapy?
Hmm. Okay, so before therapy, of course, we need to have a number of things in our mind. So, first of all, if we talk about the systems, we have to schedule the sessions according to the client's need, whether it's going to be online or offline right now, because both of the modes are working. So, first of all, if it's a first session, we need to have a case intake form, right, which is the case history. We take all the case history, case information. Then secondly, we have consent form. So if the client is online, then of course the consent form is supposed to be given online. And if it's in person, then of course have a print, take the client signature, let them know whatever they are reading, whether they have any confusion about it. You actually psychoeducate them what the consent form is, and then you proceed with the session. So what you keep handy is of course the case history form, whether you take all the case history, right? There can be a number of ways to take a case history, whether you want to take it directly or you want to just have a conversation and then fill it later on. But there are chances that you might miss a few pointers. So you take a case history form, you have a consent form. These are like two mandatory things that you need to have initially. Apart from that, of course, you have to have like a sheet of paper, or you can have a diary and a pen to write down whatever they are saying. Usually we write in verbatim or the keywords, but again, if you're writing right in front of the client, then of course it makes the client a little more conscious. So I personally prefer
Mhm.
writing all of this post the session. Right. So I only take case history in front of them. And after that, whatever we are having a conversation about, whatever the counseling session is about, that happens after the session. I write down all the notes after that. So I guess these are the two main things that we usually work upon in the case in the counseling session. And then after the session is done, we just write down all the notes, what all verbatims were there. You usually go in a particular manner. For example, you write down the case history, you write down a few narratives, you write down the verbatim that are the exact words of the clients for a few things which you think are important for the counseling session. You write down, what approach you think. You write down the keywords. For example, if the client is talking a lot about existence, what is freedom according to you, what is the meaning of life, these are a few keywords that usually go for existentialism, right? So you understand, you identify certain keywords, what keywords were being used, whether there were certain defense mechanisms that were visible. You ask them a number of
Mhm.
narratives about their lives, and then you write down all the notes. So after writing that down, then you proceed with the next session where you can, either take again the session, you just have to read all the notes again, and you can then decide what short term and long term goals are to be taken. So that is like a very generic thing. And then after you decide what short term and long term goals are to be taken, you discuss it with the client in the next session, probably in the second or third session. And then accordingly, you start picking up various therapies which are suitable for each and every goal. You write down specific technique that will be used for a particular goal. And I guess that's how we usually go about it. And whenever the next session is happening, we definitely go through the notes again because we are seeing a number of clients in a day. So we have to remember all the narratives, all the verbatims, or all the presenting problems that the client is going through. We follow up, we ask them whether the symptoms or whether the thoughts or whatever problems they were facing, how they are going, whether they are progressing, whether they have stopped, and teaching them coping styles. So that is how properly, we go for the systems.
Understood. So now, before therapy and after therapy is sorted, that is coming under supervision, for example. Now jump towards mentorship. Somebody who's taking mentorship from you and who knows that how therapy works, what to do before therapy, what to do after therapy, but have major questions like how to get first client, how to launch a business plan. Can you just define the word that you used many times, that is a business plan? What exactly
Uh,
business plan means for a therapist? What exactly they should do in that?
okay. So business plan, first of all, of course, I always start with whether you have finances right now or not, because it's going to take approximately 6 to 8 months to have a proper setup, right? So at least you should have 6 to 8 months of finances in your hand so that things are stable, right? Finances are a big thing. So first of all, know how much you can invest and how much ROI, return of investment, you're expecting, right? Because if you're starting with a private practice, whether it's online, whether it's offline, you're going to pay a number of bills out there. Right. So, first of all, investment and finances are one thing that I usually talk about. For example, we usually say that, okay, if I'm, taking it online, I don't have to spend my money on, let's say, a rental room or a cabin or a space to, have my counseling sessions. But apart from that, you have to spend your money on, let's say, social media. You advertise yourself. People think just advertising yourself on Instagram or using meta ads, it's more than enough, but it is not. You have to go into the algorithm, right? So this goes into the sales or marketing part. I'll talk about it later, but I guess finances, one of the main things. You go for your trademark, you go for a particular registration, be it LLP, be it OPC, like one person company is OPC, limited liability partnership is LLP or private practice. Apart from that, you might be going for various, various registrations from the government that are there, let's say Niti Aayog or something related to Ministry of Education if you're going for training. So these are a few things where you definitely need some or the other finances, right? Registration fees are there. So finances is one thing that I usually say. Finances, it's not just about the investment. Secondly, it also comes about how much you're going to charge, right? Just to get a number of clients, people out there are charging as minimal as 300, 400 rupees. Right. So you have to understand if I'm, investing this much, then at least this should be the minimal cost that I should charge so that I remain on the neutral part. And if possible, then I need to get a little profit out of it. Right. So this is the second part because a number of times due to imposter syndrome or, due to just to get clients, out of desperation, we undercharge ourselves as well. And that happens a lot. So even I've gone through it. Right. So I guess business planning for me, it starts with finances. First of all, understand your finances. Secondly, it comes how you're actually branding yourself, right? Taking a name, whether you're going in your personal name or you're, keeping a name for your organization or for your practice, whatever it is, how you're branding it, right? There is a brand identity, there is a logo identity, there is a face identity, right? How I'm portraying myself right now. I'm sitting in front of you. I'm using my LinkedIn, I'm using my social media account, right? So when people see my face, when people see, okay, Muskan Sharma, right? So they already know this is, a counseling psychologist and she is being, she's working in this particular area. So that is the face identity. Brand identity, the name of the brand, right? Whatever you're using. Then the logo identity, if you have a particular logo, so, you put that logo, like for example, if we see Nike or Puma, or there are so many other, brands, we just look at the logo and we know, okay, this is this particular brand. Right. So these are all high brands that have actually worked on their logos. Right. So you just look at the logo and you already know it. So that is how in psychology also we work like that. And we should work like that. In fact, we are not working on it right now. So I guess that is one thing, how you're branding yourself. Then you market yourself, how you're marketing it. If I'm talking about brand identity, if I'm talking about logo identity, what is the logo about? Telling your story, telling your journey, relating to people emotionally, because we are in psychology field, of course there should be an emotional connect, right? Once you get an emotional connect, then you start to market yourself with your competencies, with your skills, with your certifications or with your education qualifications, with your experience. That is how you start to market yourself. You put out yourself that, okay, these are my, competency areas. These are the areas that I work in. This is what I've already done. So that is how you start to market yourself. Then if we talk about the strategies of marketing, then we enter social media is there. We have online or offline marketing. We can go for networking, we can have our business cards. As simple, very simple trick that I tell my all early career therapists: get a visiting or a business card printed whenever you're meeting a new person, whenever they're asking, oh, what you do, just hand over your card, right? It stays with the person, right? So this is how you market yourself. You can, either use the traditional ways, putting posters or having business cards, or going to various networking or mental health professional mixers. We have so many out there. We can use that offline thing to actually market ourselves, to actually portray, okay, this is who I am, or this is what my company or my organization is doing. Or we can use social media. Like a social media is something that we all are using, right? But apart from that, I would say again, I see a number, I see almost everyone. In fact, students of bachelors, they just think that, okay, we'll just start with an Instagram profile and that's going to, market us. So that is not exactly how it works. That does, but that's not exactly how things work, right? So you have to understand your target audience, who your target audience is, right? You're not going to get much clients, let's say from social media, from Instagram, but you might get clients from LinkedIn, you might get clients from Google, right? Google business. So you have to understand who your target audience is. What is your area of work, right? Networking with hospitals, collaborating with clinics, with other doctors might get you better clients than being socially, present on social media. So, there should be a balance of all of these things. So, according to your target audience, you can target social media, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, or Google Business, or if in person, then you can collaborate with a number of hospitals around you, with a number of, schools around you if you are going for children or adolescent counseling, right? Depending on the cases, the target audience, your area of work, you have to understand how to actually get the right clientele towards you. I guess that is how you understand the whole business planning.
Right. Um, I really loved when you talk about target audience, multiple social media platform, having a brand identity like Nike logo or something that you have a logo that is very specific that identifies you. So yes, omni-channel is very important. Being into omni-channels, being into multiple social media platform, don't get dependent on one. Having
Hmm.
your own logo and identity is very important. Right now, many mental health brands usually just launch yellow colors or a bit reddish colors, and that's bombarded. They don't have their identity. You have to work on your identity. So, yes, you rightly said about target audience as well. You need to define the age brackets that you're working with. You have to specify a content type for them to make them aware, to make them know that, hey, I exist.
Hmm.
If you gained some followers and gained some, you can say, viewership, it doesn't mean that they will sustain for a longer run. You
Hmm.
have to get eyeballs to get new clients,
Hmm.
right? Content makes that possible. And you have to put yourself out to get clients because people are on social media. They are either on LinkedIn, they are either on Instagram, they are at least on WhatsApp. You can make a WhatsApp community and start marketing yourself at that particular part. You need a marketing plan and execution plan. That's very important. So we discussed upon what therapy is all about, what works in therapy beforehand and after the therapy session for a psychologist. Now, how to get the first client.
Okay, how to get the first client? I would say start with actually specifying your niche. What is your target audience, as we just discussed? Understanding your target audience and your area of work definitely helps you in actually understanding what sort of client you're, focusing on. Firstly, is this. Secondly, accordingly, you can, focus on what social media platform or what sales or, marketing platform can be used. Right. For example, if my niche is, let's say, Gen Z, then of course, social media like Instagram can be helpful. If my target audience are students right now, LinkedIn or professional as well, so LinkedIn can be a good platform. Then Google business is of course there. And apart from that, you can have a website as well, right? Make the social media content, put it out there, put your link, website link everywhere. You can schedule your session, put a link, put your schedule there. Whatever services you're providing with, people can go, they can see what all areas you're working in, they can see your about me section as well, what all expertise you hold, what all educational qualifications you have, what all experience you have. And accordingly, once you provide people with information about yourself, about your practice, about your availability, of course, about your contact number or your email, then of course the client will, of course, they will contact you accordingly and they can book a session with you. So that is how you get a, your first client. And putting out the social media content and marketing yourself. So that is how you can get your first client.
Sure thing. So now I have taken supervision, for example, and mentorship as well. And I'm a psychologist, for example, but I'm not, but if I am. So if I went to supervisor and complete my supervision and also mentorship sessions as well, what should I do next? Should I take supervision lifelong? Or will there be a point that, yes, supervision is done now. I am a good therapist that I can handle each and every client myself. And will there be a point as well that I will be not having mentorship? So, how things work? What is the point that a therapist don't require supervision and mentorship?
Okay. So supervision is like a professional maturity, right? When you decide that you need supervision, that is, I say that it is a professional maturity that you realize, okay, I need someone to, discuss, to get more perspective about the same case, or to how to actually use different therapies or how to use different techniques. So of course, taking supervision, it starts from early career. It absolutely depends like how much frequently you need supervision based on how much you actually want it. Then slowly, once you get a hold of various therapies and techniques, the supervision frequency definitely decreases. There might be one point where you think that you don't need supervision, and that is absolutely fine, right? And that is correct as well sometimes. But still, even after 5 years or 10 years of experience, sometimes you do need supervision. Even right now, I have my supervisor. I have 5 years of experience. My supervisor has 12 years of experience, right? So that is a life going like a lifelong process. So there is no point where you don't need supervision, but it is absolutely on you. If you are, keeping an if you're keeping a blind eye towards it, that okay, I have reached a point where I don't need anything, I don't think so that happens. I guess knowledge and learning is lifelong, and that is how supervision also works. So it's not necessary that you need to have a senior supervisor, as I initially said in the in the conversation that we are having in this podcast, that there is peer supervision as well, right? So supervision is a lifelong process. It absolutely depends whether you're open to actually take different perspectives about it, whether you're ready to discuss different things, whether you're ready to discuss different therapies and techniques. Because let's say right now I have 5 years of experience, after another 10 years or another 5 years, new therapies might be coming up, right? Mental health is also changing. Whatever mindset that we had 10 years before 10 years, and right now what we are having, and what mindset we will be having after 10 years, it will going to change. It's going to change, right? So when I deal with the younger generation, the mindset is so different. When I'm dealing with the elder generation, the mindset is so different. So of course supervision is required throughout. How to actually understand what is going on, whether I'm doing the right thing or not, to to get rid of that fatigue, that therapist fatigue, to understand whether my therapy sessions are going in a correct direction or not. So supervision is definitely going to be there throughout. Definitely the frequency might decrease, it might increase, it might stop for a little while, then it might continue after a little while. So it absolutely depends on you. That supervision is, of course, it's like a support system. It should be there, and rest is on you, whether you're open to take it or not.
I loved the conversation, Muskan. I also learned a lot about supervision with this conversation. And you rightly said that there will be no point in your life for sure that you don't need supervision or mentorship, because even if you talk about mentorships, there
Mm.
will be at least someone who is very much experienced than you in terms of systems and processes. If you have a metrics of having X amount of clients in a week, somebody have plus one of it at least,
Mm.
right? If you have a metrics of having this amount of processes on the table, you will have someone above that particular point. If the money is your metrics, somebody is already up. If you have number of hours into your practice, somebody will be above. So you need to understand that yes, mentorship is one thing, supervision is one thing, and it's a lifelong process that yes, I need to be in the system, in the process, and somebody is already doing much more better. I need to improve. Right. So I love the conversation. Any last note that you want to give to the audience, to the psychologists that are out there?
Okay, I guess I'd like to conclude with what you just said right now. It's very true that, if you're there, somebody is definitely going to be up there. It's going to be, someone is going to be above there. So do not, compare yourself that much. No knowledge, no amount of knowledge is enough knowledge. So instead of comparing yourself, instead of being underconfident, because in mentorship or in supervision, people come to me with a lot of underconfidence, please don't do that. No knowledge is enough knowledge, and if you see someone else is having more knowledge, then gain more knowledge from them. Right? So instead of feeling underconfident, you don't have to be underconfident, you just have to be out there, you have to be open enough to understand, okay, I can also reach there, I can understand, I can learn, I can gain more knowledge. So I guess that's it. So in supervision or in mentorship or in overall in psychology, I would just say that please be open. There is a lot out there to learn, there is a lot out there. In at no point in your life you are going to have all the knowledge, right? So just it's an ongoing process, just keep on learning, keep on moving ahead, and I guess that's it. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Muskan. I loved the conversation.
Yeah, same here. I really enjoyed it.